Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Salma. I'm a mom of 6, and here I talk about all things related to parenting Muslim children and raising a healthy Muslim family. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about self-care, inshallah. Okay, and self-care is just such a cliche word, so I want to tell you a story how I teach about self-care in my classes. I've been running parenting support groups for Muslim moms since 2008, since my third child was a baby. I figured I was alone, I felt lonely. I was a midwife at that time, and in my midwifery practice we had a support group for moms, but I noticed that my Muslim moms were not coming. So I figured, let's do a Muslim-only parenting support group. And I've been running those in person for many, many years. First in Canada, then in Saudi Arabia, then in the UAE. The last edition of this is called Mommy Mondays, and I ran it online during COVID, and then we took a long break. So inshallah, I'm planning to open it up again in January. So if you're interested in that, put your name in the email below on the page. I'll put a link in the description box so you can be on a waiting list, inshallah, for when I open up the virtual community again, inshallah, in January. But back to my story about self-care. One of the standard exercises I do with my groups or with my moms is to ask them about self-care. I ask them about things they like doing for themselves, to make a list of 10 things. So that's the first bit of the exercise, right? To think of 10 things you like to do that energize you, that you like doing for yourself, not for your spouse, not for your kids, not for the ummah, not for anybody else, just so you can feel better and you can feel energized, right? And it should not be something that's some noble goal that is, it's to achieve your goal, but rather something that energizes you, something that refills your energy, right? 10 things. And a lot of moms have a hard time with that. A lot of moms immerse themselves so much into motherhood that they have an even hard time coming up with 10 items. So a lot of times in my groups, moms are just you have either moms that are scribbling furiously and just writing down all the things they like to do. And sometimes you have moms that are just staring blankly at the page and saying, hey, I don't even remember what I like to eat anymore. I just eat the kids' leftovers, right? And so it's a good idea to start here thinking about your self-care. Are you doing the things you like? Do you even remember what are the things you like to do? Things that bring you joy, things that energize you as a person, not just as a mom. So for some moms, this will be maybe more quiet time, just sitting in peace and having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. And for some moms, that might mean be more social, see a friend, go outside, go to a halakha, right? So think of things that bring you joy, that bring you energy, things that make you feel alive, right? And try to come up with a list of 10 things, right? And so those are the things that nobody else should be doing for you. Those are the things that are part of your life, right? And a lot of times that those can be spiritual things, praying, and definitely, reading Quran and all these kind of things. But a lot of times, I don't want you to put shoulds on that list. Like, I want you to put things that from your experience help you feel better, right? And so make a list of 10 things, right? Now, the second part of the question is where it gets a bit tricky, right? A lot of times moms know what they like to do. They're like, oh yeah, I like going out, I like going to the gym, I like exercising, or I like going to the beach, or I like being in the sunshine, or whatever it is, right? But the second part of the question is, how many times have you done any of these things from your list in the last 3 to 6 months, right? This is important, right? Because even if we know what energizes us or what makes us feel alive, often we don't do it. Like, we just everything else is more important, right? So go through your list and make a note. When was the last time you've done the things that you like doing, right? Because this is where we slip. This is where we sacrifice and we forget taking care of ourselves, right? And this is the part, where it becomes just like, oh yeah, I know I like to read a book and, be quiet, have some quiet time, but I haven't done it in over a year, right? And of course, then that's where we're noticing the pattern of our batteries draining and us not having the energy to show up, and feeling overwhelmed and feeling burnt out, right? Now, the third part of the question, we're not done yet with the exercise. The third part of the question is, what's your obstacle? Like, why are you not doing these things? How come you didn't do it in the last 3 to 6 months? What was your obstacle? Usually the obstacles will be one of 3 things based on my experience. Now, you might differ, so it's okay. Put whatever you feel on your list. It'll be time. I don't have time. It'll be often money. People say, well, I don't have money, I can't afford it, whatever it is. And third will be people, okay? So kids, spouse, in-laws, parents, society, like, that you don't have their support, that you're not, maybe you'll say, oh, I'd like to do X, Y, and Z, but I don't have nobody to watch the kids, or my husband is not supportive, or my parents, or whatever it is in your case, right? But I try to identify the obstacle. Why haven't you been able to make the time for these kind of things that you want to do? That's the exercise I do. And over the years, this is kind of how I start out my parenting support groups. Like, we start with this basic idea that we need something to fill our batteries, and those things will differ. I remember in one of the gatherings, one of the moms was saying how she loved being alone, how she loved just, having a peaceful morning, waking up before the kids and just having a cup of coffee on her own, and just kind of, that was her self-care, that was her item. But she lived in a busy household. She lived in a joint family, and it was very hard to get that alone time. And then the other mom in the same gathering, she was almost crying. She said, oh, I hate being alone. I live by myself in an apartment with my spouse, and he's at work all the time, and I feel like I'm dying a slow death because I'm so lonely and I'm so alone. So she was craving company. She was craving, seeing people. And again, we will be different personalities. Some of us are more introverted, some of us are more extroverted. Like, whatever you like is your thing to like. Like, don't feel guilty. That's why I'm saying stay away from the shoulds, but really, truly, honestly think about things. When did I feel at my best? What were the things that I was doing? Can I make a list of 10 things that make me feel alive, that make me feel good, right? And again, this can be physical, this can be spiritual, this can be any number of things, but I want you to start with that list, and then start with the second question. The last 3 to 6 months, when was the last time I did any of these things? How can I get back to that? How can I put that back on my calendar? And then third, what's your obstacle? How can we deal with the obstacles? Like, what's preventing you? Often there's this idea that when we become mothers, that taking care of ourselves is selfish, right? That we should be giving, and that we need to give. And kids take a lot, especially if you have little ones. They need you, and they need you physically. They need you at all times, right? But then how can we sustain that kind of taking care of? I've had 6 kids, alhamdulillah, and I've been breastfeeding and taking care of them. But part of the idea that I was able to do that was because I was making time for myself all over the years, because I would have burnt out a long, long time ago. So when people look and say, okay, how are you able to do all these things? How are you able to homeschool? How are you able to find time for your projects? How are you able? Part of that is making time for myself and filling up my batteries and recharging and taking care of myself so I can take care of the others around me. Okay, so that's the first thing I want you to think about. I want you to think this exercise, and if you're interested in doing it, like, there's going to be a PDF down somewhere in the description below, if I can figure out the technology behind it, where you can download a copy, or you can just do it in your journal. Just kind of come up with the list and then see. Now, my pro tip for this exercise is to start with something where you don't need other people. Okay, start with something simple, because a lot of moms will say, well, I like to do X, Y, and Z, but my spouse is not supportive, or I can't do it, I need this. Start with something easy, because that success is going to fuel your motivation. Start with something that you can do for 10 minutes. Start with something simple where you don't need to ask permission, where you don't need to involve other people, where you can just kind of do this under the radar, so to speak, where you can slowly start doing this for yourself. And try to do 3 things every week. Start small, but like, put something that brings you joy, that makes you feel alive. So that way, when you kind of check that off, and when you fill your battery a little bit, you'll feel motivated to continue, inshallah. Okay, and then these little steps will build on to something bigger, inshallah. Okay, so that's my experience with kind of practical ways, and this is what I usually speak to my moms about in my personal support groups. Now, this is the second part of this thing, is that this idea that self-care is going to take care of all our problems. And I used to be mad at self-care, okay? Because I was so busy, and I had all these children, and I had so many things to do. Self-care felt like an additional item on my to-do list, right? Self-care felt like, oh my goodness, like, I'm taking care of everybody. I'm taking care of all these other things. Now I got to take care of myself on top of everything else. I was actually waiting for somebody else to take care of me. Okay, I was hoping somebody else would step in. I was hoping somebody else would give me permission. I was hoping, and this is not a wrong idea. And I think many of us are stuck because we're waiting for somebody else to show up and kind of give us the care that we need. And actually, this is not a wrong thing. I think self-care is one of those new terms. I think in the past, it used to be hierarchical care. And I think Islamically also, it's the care that kind of goes top to bottom. So basically, as parents, we take care of our kids. Then the kids' batteries or their cups are full, so they can give freely, right? Because often we find ourselves in situations where our cups are empty, and then we seek validation in wrong ways. We seek validation from our kids. We want our kids to think we're good parents, or we want the neighbors to think we're good parents. Like, we seek validation from somewhere else because our cups are not full, right? And so even Islamically, if you think about that hadith from the shepherds, that everybody is shepherd of their flock and that they have to take care of it. Men often are shepherds, right, of their household, and they should be able to take care of their flock. And so a lot of women don't feel very supported by their husbands. They don't feel supported by the top hierarchy, right? And so our self-care should not just be self-care, it should be community care, it should be family care. And this is why often mothers are burnt out, and often they don't have the energy to take care of themselves, because it's not a concept that it's a very individualized concept from the Western world, like, oh yeah, everybody takes care of themselves, right? You have to have somebody else taking care of you, right? And that should be an Islamic principle, right? And this is why, as mothers, when we take care of our children, there should not be a price tag attached to it. We should not be doing it so our kids can thank us one day, right? Like, we're doing this for the sake of Allah, but we also need to recharge somehow. And so we should have, ideally, people that take care of us. We should have, ideally, full cups of praise and encouragement coming from our parents, right? Full cups of love and care coming from our spouses. So then when it's our time to give, we have something to give. We have a cup that's full, that's overflowing, right? And then we can just pass it on freely, inshallah, to somebody else. But because often our cups are broken, or our cups are inadequate, we didn't get the care, either from our parents or from our upbringing, we are kind of leaky in that aspect, right? And so often we don't even know how to take care of ourselves. We were made to feel like we were a burden. We were made to feel like it's wrong to ask for time for ourselves. A lot of moms report to me that they feel like it's selfish when they ask to have a break, when they ask to, for some help. Okay, so this is why I say that self-care by itself is not enough. We cannot just, put that, and this is the advice I often hear, especially in the practicing Muslimah circles, often when a mother complains that she has young children. And when it comes, for example, to things like hifz or, seeking Islamic knowledge, then the advice is often, wake up before the children or stay up after everything has been done. And that just adds to the Muslimah's plate. It's kind of like she's on her own in this project, right? So in order for her to accomplish her goals and, get to her whatever she wants, she has to take away from her well-being, right? Like, she has to cut down on her sleep, and she has to... I want mothers to get to the point where they can have adequate support in their daily lives, where they can do Quran in the middle of the day, where somebody will help them with their children, where they're going to have their spouse stepping in and saying, hey, it's okay, I got this, you go do your murajia, or here, it's okay, you go pray quietly while I take care of the kids, right? So it has to be this community care rather than just the mothers doing all this on their own, right? So even when it comes to things like homeschooling, often sisters ask me, well, can I homeschool if my husband's not on board? Yes, you can, but it's going to be much, much harder. If you have the support, then it's going to be much easier to figure out how to be with your children 24/7 and how to give them the love and the care that they need, right? So self-care by itself, it's important that you take care of yourself. It's important that you show the initiative, that you know what you want, because we cannot expect other people to know what we want, right? We have to communicate. We have to say, hey, look, I need to go for a walk. I need to get some fresh air. How can we put this in our schedule? And this is a conversation you can have with your spouse. But they cannot know what we want. And often, like I said, we will have differing things that make us happy, right? But also, other people around us need to give something. So we need community care. We need family care, right? Self-care is not enough. And so this is why I want you to kind of, when you answer that third question, what has been your obstacle? Often the obstacle is us, because we feel shy to ask, we feel shy to put our foot forward, but also there is also lack of support of those around us, right? And so we have to have frank discussions that this is not a one-woman journey. We need the entire family to participate in this, So for Muslim mothers to feel healthy, for Muslim mothers to feel encouraged, we need other people to participate as well. So we need their spouses to participate. We need the in-laws to be supportive. We need the parents to be supportive, not always critical. I just spoke to a young mom recently who has 3 kids, and she says her own mother makes her feel so guilty. She's overwhelmed with the 3 young kids, but every time her mom calls her and tells her, oh, have you forgotten that you have a mother? You never call me, you never do this, so the mother is demanding attention. Meanwhile, this young mom said, I wish she would say something encouraging to me. I wish, that hierarchical care would be coming. She's like, I wish my mom would encourage me so then I can give freely to my kids, right? So it goes top to bottom, right? And so this is then why we end up being short on patience with our kids, because we have nothing else to give, right? So I know this is a bit over the place, because I was kind of wanting just today to talk about the self-care aspect of it, because I see a lot of moms burning out, and I see a lot of moms being overwhelmed, and I see this in the comment section where moms are saying, hey, I want to accomplish all these things, but I can't do it. It's overwhelming. How do I manage? How do I manage my time? How do I manage my energy? How do I manage my little kids? So yes, a lot of it's about your self-care. A lot of it's about you being proactive and figuring out what you want and making that list of 10 items, and also making time for it. But you will not be able to make time for it without the support of those around you, without the community aspect, without your spouse participating, without those around you being supportive, right? Without that village that comes with us, taking care of families, right? So my goal here is not just to empower women and just to tell them, okay, you got to take care of yourself, and just kind of, don't worry about anybody else, but for the whole family to get better, for everybody to kind of participate, for everybody to be in the best version of themselves, inshallah. So this way we will have healthier families. So self-care is not enough. Community care is needed. Now, what to do when you don't have that hierarchical care? What do you do when you don't have a supportive spouse? What do you do when you don't have supportive parents that are giving? When you have critical in-laws, when that support is not coming top to bottom, how can you do it? You need to find surrogate family, so to speak. You need to find professional help in some cases. If you have a lot of childhood trauma, for example, that is hard for you to let go, you can consult a counselor, a coach, a therapist, you can get professional help in these areas. But also you can create that community. You can create a sort of a surrogate community. You can find like-minded people in your life. As I mentioned before, I've been running parenting support groups for moms for many, many years because I felt alone as a mom. I felt like I didn't get the encouragement that I needed to be the mom I wanted to be. Right? I'm a very social person. I like seeing people. That brings me energy. So every time I would move, I would kind of think, okay, what's on my self-care list? Oh, seeing people. Okay, how can I see people as a young mom? Let me connect with other moms, right? Like, let me connect with other people in the same boat. Maybe I will learn something from them. Maybe they will encourage me. I will encourage them, right? So that's part of creating that community care where we show up for each other, where we help each other. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing this YouTube channel as well, to connect with other people who are on the same journey of wanting to be the better version of themselves, who are wanting to be higher quality Muslim mothers, not just, Muslim mothers who are stuck and who are overwhelmed and who are just surviving. I want us to thrive, inshallah, right? And so I've been meaning to get this offline community that I've always been running in my community to bring it online. During COVID, we had it on Zoom and on WhatsApp and things like that, and it was taking up a lot of my energy, so I kind of took a break after 2 years. And so my goal is in January, inshallah, of this year, and coming up here, to start a virtual community online. So if you're interested, put your email there on the waiting list, inshallah, so I can keep you updated on how this is going to be structured. I want it to be away from social media. I want it to be a private community. And so as I figure out these details, inshallah, I would love for you to be part of that journey and part of that private Muslim communities of like-minded mothers, where we can share things, where we can connect with each other, where we can use the internet for good, because many of us are lonely and isolated in our communities, inshallah. So this is my motivation for being here and sharing this publicly, so we can have that community care for each other and not just the self-care. All right, I hope this helps, inshallah, and I'll see you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.